Hi, I'm Greg Uland with Reynolds, and this is Connected live at NADA. This episode, I'm really excited to get to sit down with Aharon Horwitz, who's the CEO of Fullpath, and Brad Title, the president of Gubagoo. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining.
Happy to be here.
All right, so big partnership, rolling out Curator with Gubagoo at the show this weekend. But I wanted to start actually the conversation kind of in the CRM, right? Because, you know, the CRM's come a long way over the years. I mean, you had a CRM that you built, what, 30 years ago, 20 years ago? I mean, it's been a while.
Yeah.
But I mean, over time, it's went from a Rolodex to, you know, something to document calls in, to a reminder system, and it's so much more today. But when we think about the CRM, it's really powering a lot of the front end of the store, right? So, and when you think about the workflows inside of the CRM, a lot of times they get segmented, or at a minimum, they're manual processes. So there's still, somebody still has to do those things inside of the CRM. So I was kind of curious, maybe Brad, you can start your perspective on CRM, kind of its evolution, where it is today, and then where it's heading, especially with the power of Curator behind it.
Sure. So, you know, I think that when you go back 30 years ago to my infancy, it was contact management, cloud-based solutions. Then the omni-channel had begun, really. It was born where you went from mail to email to text to the digital channels, retargeting. You fast track to today, you have a CRM, which is really the base of the dealership. So all the user engagement begins there. So when the door swings, the phone rings, you're in the work plans, it all begins in the BDC on these tools. So when you think about a solution that now has all the data in it from all the vendors, and there's no silos, being able to take that information in an actionable format and engage the users at the time that they're connecting with the consumer, it's most critical, especially today, because there's an old adage, garbage in, garbage out, when you enter it into a CRM.
Right.
But the CDP changes that landscape because it's taking all the updated information and behavioral events and marries it together with the contact record. So things that a CRM doesn't have today can be pushed to the user in real time and make it so actionable and effective.
Yeah.
So the space is evolving with the CRM. I think it's only going to get stronger and deeper.
Yeah, Aharon, talk about some of those things that Brad just mentioned that aren't traditionally in the CRM. You know, you obviously have a long background in automotive too, and what you've done at Fullpath is pretty impressive stuff. So talk about some of that information that Brad was just referencing that's getting into the CRM, into the customer record, and then enabling those kind of automated workflows.
I actually think what is so interesting here is that Curator, which is bringing data from all throughout the customer journey, from every system that the dealership has, into one single central, clean, organized, easy to access customer record.
Yeah.
If you think about that, and that's the tie-in obviously with CRM, is in many ways a return to the most important aspect of person-to-person retail. So if you think about it, back in the day, you know, someone walks into a store, they may have been your customer for 50 years, 30 years, 20 years, right?
Sure.
You knew their grandparents. You knew
Right.
what softball league their kids are in, right? And there's something very personable about it because you had all this insight into the person and you could kind of intuit as a human what they're most interested in. And I think over time, as we sort of went more online, we distanced ourselves from that human-to-human connection. And what's happening now, because of Curator, and ultimately, I think where we're going with some of this new AI tech, we're able to push everything back into one record, let's call it, or
Sure.
one single pane of glass. And suddenly the salesperson or the marketer, whoever it is, or the tech, right, the AI agents, let's say, is able to see the holistic picture of this person and have a more rich conversation. They may not have that relationship with their grandfather, right? We're perhaps past that time in many cases, but at the very least, we can know that this person is probably looking at a truck. This is probably their range of financing possibilities. Here's kind of their service profile. And then I can make a much more intelligent conversation there or help guide them, or we can drive the marketing to be a lot more intelligent in its outreach and not just give me some, you know, vanilla plain offer or best guess, but really, really hit what that person is most looking for and needing. And so in many ways, Curator is actually it's just a huge evolution that in a weird way is a revision back to what it was in the old days.
So talk a little more about that. You know, Curator is kind of tagged as a unified intelligence engine, and you mentioned all the different data coming into it. And over the years, we've gotten a lot of pieces of software that have, done marketing, right? They've taken a lot of information in, they've tried to consolidate information. So this isn't necessarily on the surface, it doesn't sound like a new story, right? So talk about this unified intelligence engine and how it's new, how it differs from what we've seen before, whether that's from marketing automation companies, whether that's from, CRM companies, whether it's from any other types of silos that we've built out inside the store. How is it new?
I think that, when you look at it from, from the Reynolds environment, where I think that Reynolds is probably the largest first-party data collector in automotive. When you think of all their group of companies and all their organizations, I mean, Gubagoo alone collects first-party data through chat, through retailing. Then you move into all the other aspects of the business units of Reynolds. This unified intelligence engine has the ability to consolidate all these data sources into one, and then be able to inject unified records into a CDP. You're gaining a lot more horsepower. It's I say it's jet fuel. It's not low octane fuel, because with all that first party data in the CDP, you have more audiences that you can create to go after these segments and be able to engage them and give them a reason to activate, because you have so many ways to relevantly communicate. Yeah. And when you have the results from the marketing come back into it, and you're able to absorb it into the unified intelligence engine, our data is always getting enhanced and enriched. And by being able to share that with the back office systems like CRM or retail or omni-channel tools, you're going beyond unifying data. Now you're able to use that unified data to engage these people in an automated fashion. So I think it's a game changer, and really a first of its kind, because the CDP doesn't have a lot of value if you don't have that first party data.
Sure. So, and I don't know which one of you is maybe best equipped to answer this, or maybe it's both. You might have different perspectives, but how does this actually unify the record? Because we've had, you think about how many duplicates across all your systems. I mean, you probably have Brad Title, right? It could be Bradley Title. It could be Brad Title Jr. I don't know, but there could be a ton of, right, a ton of different records. And you have 3 in the DMS because you bought 3 different cars, right? You have, well, maybe 3 in sales, and then you have another 3 in service because you brought different vehicles in, right? And then you have 6 in the CRM because you've submitted leads or whatever the case may be. So there's all these different records, and they live in different places. Some of it's certainly duplicated, some of it's inaccurate, it's spelled wrong or whatever the case might be. So how do you actually go about combining those into one?
So I can take the first swing at it.
Go for it, yeah.
Okay.
So I think that, when you have this ID resolution capability and you're collecting up all this prospect data, unsold record data, you have your sold data, the first thing you have to do is have as many possible attributes that you can match against to be able to normalize anonymous people. Once you're able to normalize or identify them, then you can unify across all these touch points. Brad Title with the different email address provided today that matches the address and phone numbers of the mobile devices of 4 other records is just an example of how you can connect them. And so the having that surplus of data allows you to have touch points to match and then unify. And once you unify it against what we call the unified intelligence engine of other data sources,
right, the
more data we get on a person, even duplicate, gives us the strength to unify the record. And, you're the subject matter expert here, so
no, I think
that sounded pretty good,
first.
but
I think you said it really well, Brad. In general, the techniques of unifying data there's a lot of different approaches. There's like what they call more deterministic approaches, or you're looking for a hard point identity where you're saying, oh, it's the same email. Okay. And there's some that are more, they would call heuristic, but I think that's less important how we do it. I think it's our job to figure out how to do it as best as possible within Curator. I actually think it's more important to stay at the level of curation when we're thinking about it for a dealer. And that's what's so beautiful about the name Curator. Like, imagine a museum.
Yep.
And I have a museum here in New Orleans, and I want to do the best exhibit on Picasso possible. What do I need to do? I need to go out around the world, send a guy to go to every museum and curate the Picasso images, bring them in, and then set them up properly in the museum so that the user of that museum is going to have the best experience to understand my vision of the unified story of Picasso,
sure,
right? And essentially that's what is so special about Curator, is that all throughout the dealer's data ecosystem, all throughout Reynolds, there's all these different rooms and buildings and silos, and they're all connected in different ways. Why? Because necessarily the industry almost requires that. This Curator agent runs out and in real time for you grabs every little piece of data that's important about our Picasso, which is the customer that you're about to engage with, or
Sure.
your marketing machine is about to engage with, sets it up for you on a single pane of glass in a room, so that you can look at it and say, oh, that is what this person really needs, and or that is the next email this person needs to get. And the agent needs to know, is it a real Picasso or a fake Picasso? Is it Picasso's student, or is it actually Picasso and it was his early phase, right? And so it looks a little different. And once you build in that knowledge, you ultimately get a really good curated view of that person, and you can behave in that person in a more human way and get a better outcome. And I think that's the beauty of what curator's name implies, and it really kind of answers that question of how you pull it all together.
No, that's good. I like that. I like that.
I like the name.
It's a good name. Yeah, no, I was wondering what were you thinking when you came up with it?
It was
How
all
did it strike you?
It it's just like I think you said, it's pulling data from everywhere, and
Curation.
and when Eric Edwards introduced me to the Unified Intelligence Engine, I mean, it's really curating all the data in a capacity to be used by individuals that are interacting with that data in different purposes and means. It's kind of like when I always talk about the CDP. It's not just meant for marketing, because that unified profile can be embedded in systems that will connect different departments with the most important information. So to me, it's just curating everything.
It's not trivial, that curation, that act of curation. I think that's always the trick, right? Because you think like, oh, I don't know. It's like you get a CRM, a couple profiles, throw them all into one. Think of any complex environment where decisions have to be made.
Yeah.
The how you instrument and orchestrate the data into alignment is really critical. I know you can obviously think of it from like the battle space, right? Think of like you have to shoot a rocket out of the skies. We've seen too often in various different places around the world. Well, you've got planes, you've got birds, you've got this, that. You need to take all that information that exists on some different radar and different systems, pull it into one, and then say, that is the thing, that is the threat, I have to engage it. Or that is the opportunity. In our case, here's how we engage it. So I think it's a very non-trivial piece that actually has not really been done well in the industry. And that's why this is actually so breakthrough.
I think that our whole segmentation approach is that strategy you're talking about, because when you look at a database, it's made up of sold customers, sold and service customers. There's two attributes to them. They're either active or they're inactive. So within 6 segments, you can strategically place all the right audiences under each segment to ensure that you have full life cycle management occurring across every segment. And when the marketing occurs and their behavior changes from one segment to another, you have ensured that you are still in a life cycle management approach to targeting them and retaining
and
them.
suppressing when necessary
And
as well.
suppressing,
Say, hey, I don't want to spend my money right now on this particular person who's now slipped into this different audience characterization. So again, like Curator works along the whole life cycle of engaging a shopper. It works on the point of sale. It powers the marketing, as you mentioned, the audience activation, the outreach, the sales enablement. It's really powerful once you get it all together in a logical way.
Yeah. So I think conceptually, the audience activation piece and the marketing piece is where a lot of people will go, right? Because we've seen marketing tools for a long time in our industry, right? And some have been good, some have been not so good.
Yeah.
I agree with you. This is kind of next level what you guys have accomplished. But I also want to talk a little bit about what you're doing in sales enablement, right? And going back to the CRM and how, marketing by itself in a dealership shouldn't be a standalone thing, right? And it's not necessarily enough to just have, okay, this email was sent to the customer, so we're going to put that in the record in the CRM to let you know that the email was sent to the customer. How is Curator taking that to the next level and around, maybe from your Fullpath experience, how are you moving that into a different level where it's not just marketing, right? So with Curator, we're kind of going down these different paths.
Yeah, so I'll just give an example that I think about a lot. In the end, what Curator can work with is a lot of sensors that Reynolds and Fullpath working together have placed all throughout the data ecosystem. And those sensors come in and they give you signals, and then you can choose how to deploy those signals. But a very simple thing we've been talking about a lot that's frankly visible right now over at the booth for those that want and going to go live at some point soon is the ability to really pass information, for example, to a chat. Okay. So let's say I know that you've browsed in the past certain types of vehicles, or I know that you like certain colors, or I know, what do you mean by I? Curator knows all of that. Curator can in real time inform the chat and help empower either that chat retail operator, or if there's an AI agent involved, and fill in that information in real time. It can take an email that's about to be shipped out and quickly rewrite it and make sure it has the absolute most relevant, most up-to-date information about you. So we're talking about essentially a personalization machine at a scale that automotive has never had. It does not exist. And right now there are millions of emails being sent out under this cover that are highly personalized with all the relevant information from the Curator ecosystem. It's incredible.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. And Brad, maybe talk a little bit too, going back to the CRM as well, thinking about activities in the CRM, right? Telling the salesperson, hey, this email went out, right? This tailored email went out, the person opened it, they went to this landing page. So that's all good information, right? And historically, that's what we've had, is the information for the salesperson to use. Now think about, or maybe talk about what Curator can do to kind of push that salesperson forward and what they're supposed to do next, right? Like,
well, this is a great example where I said garbage in, garbage out syndrome, because the data that goes in there in a CRM, it's kind of flat to me. But when you inject all this information from Curator into the CRM, it's no longer flat, because all of a sudden, for example, notifying me that a customer is on the website that's mine with 3 payments left and has equity, and he's looking at these vehicles.
Yep.
And I'm able to start a chat right there. And you can either be really creepy or really professional about how you engage the customer with, here's 4 cars we have in inventory that match their interests, and talk to them with a specific vehicle information. Is one very powerful way that the CRM data standalone wouldn't allow for it, because you don't know what they're shopping currently. You don't know what they looked at on the ad. You don't know what drove them or what the sensor was that triggered their behavior to show up on the site. So having this data be able to be curated and engage the user when they're pulling up a customer record, and suddenly you know everything about what's parked in the garage when you're trying to sell them a car, but the car you have doesn't give you the ability to make a trade.
Yeah.
But the garage shows a different vehicle that could make that deal. I mean, that's very dynamic. It's highly productive. Or, when you're making a phone call follow-up and the AI wizard generates the talking points for what you should say to the customer, or by phone or in a response, and it would make a recommendation. These are the vehicles that match that person's interest. So when you reply to them with a communication, it's holding your hand in a white glove approach.
Yeah.
And that data, it doesn't come from in the CRM. It's coming from what curates out of the CDP. And that's what gives it those multi-dimensions to be able to objectively engage a customer properly and help the user do it.
Yeah.
Part of what it does is it basically lets a salesperson decide how many sales they want to make a day.
I mean, that's a very definitely possible way.
No, really, you could just say, I need to sell 5 people, and all I need to do is dive into Curator. Frankly, we have pre-built audiences that can just sort of guide your way. But if you want, build whatever audience you want. Say, hey, I want to find people who have not put in a lead for the past 5 years, but were on my website for past 2 years, whatever, were on my website yesterday, have this exact finance profile, have this exact amount of payments left. And now I want their phone number, emails, and I can just sit there and grind through that if I wanted and sell as many cars as I want. I mean, it's really empowering the point of sale in a way that they've never been empowered before.
A great example, right? You think about turnover in the dealership of salespeople. You get so many orphan customers redistributed through the CRM. And a lot of people, they're short-sighted and they're selling, they're chasing their phone ups, their walk-ins, but you got all these orphan calls to make. And you don't really know who they are. You have nothing about them. There's no optics. But when you're about to pull up an orphan and you're using the Curator data, and he's got 6 payments left, and how many cars are parked in the garage, and their lifetime value, and most importantly, hey, this is a sold and service customer that's active, been in the last 12 months, you are able to engage that person with a more relevant call. It's telling you the vehicles you need to discuss.
Right.
Where without that data, you're trying to figure out what to say that's going to establish common ground and give the customer a reason to respond. So it all comes back to this, right? It creates such greater optics with how to engage the customer.
Yeah.
I mean, I would never tell my salespeople how many to sell, because they'll say none.
Right. But I'm saying
And then they don't get in
it is
trouble.
an amazing thing. Like, one dealer we once talked to said he just dreamed of the morning he could wake up and press his phone and say, hey, Siri, I need 5 people that will buy an F-150 today. And we were like, well, here you go. Like, just do that. You can do that right here. And sure enough, we showed him people that he didn't know about, but they were active in his store. He just didn't have the right glasses on. He was looking through old pre-Curator glasses.
Yeah.
The minute you turn on Curator, suddenly you see all these people in your dealership,
ecosystem.
your digital dealership, you could just go to.
Yeah.
You just need to do it. So,
Yeah.
and your marketing will automatically do it. But anyways, it's a whole solution. That's why it's so
And
amazing.
it comes back to that whole modeling of segmentation, right? When you understand your database and you've segmented 6 different ways with 105 different audiences, you can pinpoint which segment of your database you want. It doesn't matter what model you want to sell, what vehicles you have aging in your inventory. You can pinpoint it, curate the list, and engage.
It's a revenue generation machine. That's
Yeah.
the way I think about it. It's in that sense that it is a machine that enables you to generate revenue if you use it.
Yeah.
Got to use it. But,
Yeah.
So what has the response been? You know, you've been piloting it with some dealers, but at the show, obviously launching it. I know you were doing demos before the doors even opened
Yeah.
today. Somehow people snuck in.
Yeah.
What's the response been?
I mean, it'd be premature. I mean, with our first presentation, they immediately enrolled, but we want to get through the show and see a lot more dealers attend right now to gauge it. But from our pilots, it's been a product that's been fast, fun, and easy to install. We're solving problems right out of the gate, connecting the curator data within the CRM. So be able to connect the user experiences or consumer experiences with users that are engaging. It's been so exciting. I mean, yeah. All my career, I've never seen anything that can connect the results and effectiveness like this. So far, that's how
agree
I
with every
feel.
word.
Good. Well, guys, what haven't we talked about that we should? Anything I didn't ask you that I should have, or anything you want to touch on?
It's pretty comprehensive. It's a good conversation.
I mean, I could talk for hours about it. So I don't know if you want me to.
I think people should just come and see it.
Yeah.
See it live.
Yeah,
Love it.
it's
Yeah.
definitely worth their time to spend 20 minutes and get a view. That's for sure.
All right. Well, Aharon Horwitz, CEO of Fullpath, and Brad Title, president of Gubagoo, thank you so much for joining me. Have a great show. We'll talk soon.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.